weekend.
Welcome back to Squawk Box on this Monday morning. The futures right now, you got some green arrows across the board. Dow Jones, if it opened up, would be up about 225 points. S&P 500 would be up about 28 points. And the NASDAQ up about 49 points.
All right, we're back with more with our special guest, Senator Pat Toomey, who's joining us right here on set. And Senator, you talked a lot about what happened, what went wrong. At the end of this process, do you look at it and think that there's hope for a way of doing anything before an election, or what happens?
This was our best chance to do something really major because of the procedural advantages that we have. Anything else needs 60 votes in the Senate, needs to get through committees in both the House and the Senate. Having said that, there are a couple of silver linings. One thing to keep in mind, this was an alternative. This was meant to create an alternative way to find $1.2 trillion in deficit reduction. In the absence of an agreement, as disappointed as I am, we're still going to get the $1.2 trillion in cuts over 10 years. Now, I think they've got to be reconfigured. Andy's rolling his eyes there. He's skeptical that we're going to stick to these. But there is a very powerful consensus on the part of Republicans that we've got to have this. I think the Democrats aren't going to want to completely undo it. And the second thing I would point out is we discovered trillions of dollars worth of savings that are available to us if we can have the political will. I promise you we won't accomplish all of it, but we might be able to get some pieces.
Senator, what do you say to the taxpayer that says you were given an assignment and you failed? You failed at the job. This is what you were elected to do in many ways. You were assigned a task, Republican, Democrat, doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on, and that the group didn't come up with a solution. And what does that say about the larger issues in Washington?
Look, it's very, very frustrating for Americans, no question about it. We are operating with a dysfunctional government. Look, I'm serving in a Senate that is going into its third year without having passed a budget. Senator Reid thinks it's okay for the federal government simply to violate the law and, more fundamentally, violate the common sense of having a budget for the biggest enterprise in the history of the world, the U.S. government. So we've got this dysfunctional Congress. There was a hope that maybe 12 guys, 6 and 6, and both parties and both houses would be able to overcome that.
I thought you would, actually. I was not cynical. I believe that there was a shot at this.
Okay, how about this, Senator? I've read at least a half a dozen editorials that said that with 9% unemployment, and when it became clear to the Obama administration that it wasn't coming down between now and 2012, that this entire committee was set up to fail. So that the Republicans are going to be the ones that are viewed as obstructionists in this. That's already obvious in a lot of the polls because of Grover Norquist or whatever bogeyman you want to throw in.
Who didn't think much of my proposal.
Probably didn't. All right, so the president, you just fell right into his trap. In that you knew that the Republicans would be blamed. Now you own the 9% unemployment because you're an obstructionist, and it was never a possibility of anything getting done.
I'm not nearly that cynical about it, but I will acknowledge that I think there was an asymmetry in the incentives. I mean, Republicans, I can tell you every single day in the Republican conference, when we get together, there is some level of discussion about an awareness that we are screaming towards a fiscal cliff. A full-blown crisis, completely predictable, and we've got to find a way to change the course.
I mean, well, Senator,
so,
once the polls showed that the Republicans were going to be blamed if the super committee failed, what incentive did the Democrats have to come to an agreement?
Well, and that goes to the point of the asymmetry in incentives. I think there was something to that. The president's fundamental campaign message is to run against Congress, never mind the fact that half of Congress is controlled by the Democrats. But that's his purpose, and certainly an agreement in this committee would have stepped on that narrative for the president. Having said that, I still think there were some individual members of the committee on the Democratic side who would very much at some level like to have had an accomplishment here. They were never able to.
To what end?
I think their own personal satisfaction of having done something important.
You are less cynical, though.
Now, it wasn't strong enough for them to overcome the left wing of their caucus screaming for big tax increases and don't touch the entitlements, which was the message they heard from that part of their party, and unfortunately ultimately listened to.
Wouldn't you feel used, Andrew, if all of your hurt and outrage was all planned and set up so that it wouldn't happen? You would? But you take it at face value that these guys went in there in good faith and we're going to come up with something, both sides.
I think if they weren't, that unto itself is so upsetting and it's depressing that I can't even.
You can't go there. All right.
Senator, will we get any sort of tax reform in the next 2 years?
I'm not optimistic about that. You know, it's really hard to do tax reform, as you know, because of the vested interests in the various pieces in the current code. It got this way for a reason. Someone benefits from every little piece in it, and they fight very vigorously to keep that. So my theory has long been that if we can't do it in a committee system like we just had, where we have exceptional procedural advantages, we need a presidential campaign for which this is the centerpiece.
Right.
So I think it waits till 2013.
What happens in the next 30 to 60 days? We've got payroll tax cuts, we've got a debt ceiling issue, we've got unemployment extension, never mind the $100 billion a month deficit that we keep running.
Yeah.
What's going to happen in the next 60 days?
Well, we're going to fight that out. I mean, the debt ceiling increase is probably a year from now, but it might well be before the election. But we do have payroll tax issue, unemployment insurance to address, some tax extenders. You know, I think we're going to have a contentious few weeks here leading up to the end of the year.
Leading up, it might be a contentious election. I don't know.
You think?
I'm not a fortune teller. Call me now. What was her name? She, I don't know. She didn't predict her own demise. Whatever her name was. Yeah. We got to go.
All right, Senator, we want to thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
We appreciate it.
Wish I had better news.
Next time.
It might be good.
Next time.
Great having your candor. Thank you.
We
Well,
appreciate
thank
it.
We do appreciate it.
All right, coming up at Cyber Monday, and video games figure to be hot sellers for this holiday season. Activision CEO Bobby Kotick will join us in just a few minutes. Squawk Box will be right back. What's her name? Call me now.